tonight. Before I begin answering your questions, I want to give you an update on the Republican-created healthcare crisis and the government shutdown. Today marks the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, 36 days, because Republicans have refused to negotiate with Democrats to ensure that we lower the cost of healthcare for a lot of you and Americans across the country. Now, if Republicans get their way, more than 25,000 people in my district, Washington State District 2, will lose their health care insurance and premiums will go up for all of us. Since the government shut down on October 1st, I received roughly 5,000 messages from people that I represent. 60% of these messages have been about health care and the Affordable Care Act. And last week, I sent a text survey out asking people in my district to see if they are concerned about healthcare costs going up next year. 76% of the people who responded said that, yeah, they are concerned. Since open enrollment for healthcare began on Saturday, the reality of skyrocketing healthcare costs is hitting home for lots of people. Costs are going up because of cuts to Medicaid in the Republicans' big ugly law, and because of the looming expiration of Affordable Care Act tax credits at the end of this year. This affordability crisis in Northwest Washington State and across the United States is very real. Now, costs are going up, the economy is going down because of the Trump administration's failing economic policies. The numbers are really clear. The cost of gas in our state has gone up nearly 17% since the president took office on January 20th, and that's according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Between May of 2024 and May of this year, the price for electricity in your homes went up 12.6%, and that's according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. In the past year in Western Washington State, the cost of food has gone up 3.5%, and that is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So the Trump administration and Republicans in Congress have refused to do anything to lower costs. Instead, they shut down the government and they let essential health care tax credits expire. Now, hardworking families are facing the prospect of even more strain on the budgets next year because of the Republican health care crisis. These are just a few of the messages that I have seen over the last week from constituents. Quote, our insurance will go up 600% or $1,308 per month. And that's from a Camino Island resident. My healthcare plan premium is going to increase threefold for 2026. That's from someone in Bellingham. For our family of three, our premiums will go from $1,900 a month to $2,900, and that's from a Green Bank resident on Whidbey Island. And this from an Edmonds resident. My monthly premium is $994, but I pay $306 each month after the $688 tax credit. I have received notice that my premiums will increase. I checked the exchange for 2026 plans, and I would pay as much or more than my entire pension income without the tax credit, $12,924. So overall, the message that I'm receiving from the folks I represent is pretty clear. We just can't afford this Republican healthcare crisis. Now, last week I asked folks to send me their questions in advance before the town hall, so I want to quickly hit on the top issue. This is the number one issue, the top issue that folks did ask about, and that's Medicare telehealth services. 25% of Medicare enrollees use telehealth services in 2024. It is a great option. It's a popular option for people who have had a hard time making it to the doctor and people in rural communities with limited access to hospitals and medical facilities. At this time, most Medicare telehealth services have expired due to the ongoing government shutdown. However, Medicare telehealth services for mental health will continue because Congress has already made that permanent. So there's a separation here. Medicare telehealth services for general health care expired, for behavioral health still going on. But I am co-sponsoring legislation to permanently expand Medicare's telehealth flexibilities for all services, and that's the Connect for Health Act. And I, alongside my Democratic colleagues in the House, am fighting to make healthcare more accessible and more affordable for folks in Northwest Washington State. I just think that Republicans need to come to the negotiating table, work with Democrats to extend the essential healthcare tax credits, undo the big, ugly laws, devastating cuts to Medicaid, and then let's reopen the government and ensure people get paid. So I'll keep working to lower healthcare costs. I'll keep working to lower the cost of living and to ensure our economy gets back on track. So I look forward to answering your questions about healthcare, about the government shutdown, about really anything that you have questions about. So please feel free to ask me questions about other topics, certainly as well. And with that, I want to turn it back over to Pam, who has one more reminder before I start answering your questions. Pam?
Thank you, Representative Larsen. If you are listening on your phone and you have a question, feel free to press *3 at any time or press *6 to sign up for Representative Larsen's e-newsletter, which is a great way to stay informed. If you're watching on the live stream on Facebook or Instagram, you can leave your question in the comments below the live stream. And with that, we're going to go to our first question, which is asked by Curtis, who's watching online. And Curtis wants to know, when will the shutdown end?
Curtis, this is a fundamental question. It's a great question. All questions are great, but this one is really fundamental. The short answer is I don't know, but let me talk to you a little bit about the environment that exists right now. So I'm actually in Washington, D.C. Right now. I am ready to vote. I'm ready to vote to reopen the government. I'm ready to vote to fix the healthcare crisis, reopen the government, and ensure federal employees, including air traffic controllers, get paid. I think what happened last night in the election, and if someone has a question later, we can go into a little more detail, but was after 36 days, after a record shutdown, voters generally in the big races voted against Republicans and voted for Democrats. Now, there may be Democrats and Republicans on the call. I just think the objective view of this is that Republicans did not get rewarded for this shutdown. And so what that is something that has changed in the environment in which these decisions are getting made. The other one is open enrollment started last Saturday for these healthcare plans, and people are starting to finally get their premium increases. They're finally starting to understand what those are. And then the third issue, Curtis, is the food stamps. Food banks right now are getting slammed by people coming in because their food stamp dollars are getting cut. And I think we need to certainly be sensitive and sympathetic and empathetic to our neighbors who rely on food stamps and now are having to go to food banks. But we need to fund the food stamp program so folks don't go hungry as well. So between hunger, between food stamps, between the changing in political environment, that's changing the environment here in DC about what is going to happen. Now, I don't want to go into a lot of process about what it will take to go, through the votes to get a shutdown done, but I do think it has changed the environment. The last 5 days has changed the political environment in which we're operating, and I do think there's a growing desire to end this shutdown, to fix healthcare, to pay folks, including our air traffic controllers who are not getting paid and yet showing up every day for work. So I can't give you a date. It would be irresponsible for me to give you a date, but I do think things are changing right now. It's a great question. There's a lot more detail to go into about process, about other things impacting this. But that's kind of, I think, generally where I'd want to start with the answer to that question. But it's a great question. Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you, Congressman. Our next question is from Greg from Stanwood. Greg, you are live with Congressman Larsen.
Yeah, hi, Congressman.
Hey, Greg.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm good.
Hi. My question is, as a union person for like the last 30 years, I've noticed that more and more union jobs, especially in construction, we're losing them and to different entities. And I was just curious how you can build more union jobs, especially like with, Boeing being union and all these other companies, how we could get more union jobs going forward.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg. And I think the best, a political mentor of mine said the best welfare program is ensuring someone has a great job, not a public sector job, not a publicly funded job, but a private sector job. We have to create jobs, and that's why, as the chair or the ranking member, the top Democrat on the Transportation Committee in Congress, it is so important to me to pass the next version of what we call the bipartisan infrastructure law. In 2021, President Biden signed what we call the BIL into law, and that funded transportation projects and infrastructure projects all over the country. Think roads, think bridges, think highways, think about water systems, sewer systems, things people take for granted, but they have to be funded, they have to be built. And in these jobs in our state, these have been jobs that have been completed by great union members. And I won't get into all of it. I don't want to name check the unions, but the building trades, the folks who are involved in building trades. These are great union jobs, but we need to keep that going because we're not done building and rebuilding America's infrastructure. And so, as the ranking member on this committee on transportation, I am seeking to do the second version of this bipartisan infrastructure law so that we can keep the job engine going. And I think it's important to do this because these are good paying jobs. I do think that the president's policies on tariffs and other things are raising prices for people, and it is also dampening economic growth. We can talk about trade and tariffs later, but I do think we need to ensure that there are good paying jobs for these women and men in our unions who are building the next generation infrastructure. And so passing the next version of the bipartisan infrastructure law is extremely important because I know that we still have bridges we need to get rebuilt in my area and across the country. There are roads that need to get rebuilt. There are transit systems, buses that move people as well that need to be enhanced, and we have great union people driving those buses around the Puget Sound as well. And so for you, Greg, I would just note that I am working hard to create jobs, especially by investing in the next generation of infrastructure and in transportation. And there's a lot of work left to do. We did a great job in 2021 with the bipartisan infrastructure law, but we were way behind then, and we're only now catching up. And so we have to get to, we got to do another version of this.
Thank you, Congressman. As a reminder for the folks on the call, if you have a question that you would like to ask, you can press *3 at any time, and a member of our staff will collect your question. For our next question, we're going to go to Joseph in Ferndale. Joseph in Ferndale, you are live with Congressman Larsen.
Oh, okay. My question is, I've been told by Republicans that the tax credits for the ACA are just expiring. They were put in place during COVID, and they were always intended to expire. And now that they are expiring, now the Democrats want to push them through, even though the law says that they're intended to expire. Is that true? I understand that if they do expire, it's going to create extreme hardship for so many people, possibly including me. I don't really know yet, but I'm just wondering, is there truth to that? Or even if there is, I hope something can be done. Thanks so much for having this call.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph. I appreciate it. Yeah, let's get the facts straight. Yes, it is in fact the case when we passed the Affordable Care Act in 2010. we had these things called premium tax credits. And those were tax credits that folks could take when they bought health insurance on the state-based or the federal health exchange. In Washington State, we have a state-based exchange. And they would get a tax credit to buy down the price of the premium. And then during COVID, because people were so crunched and pushed, we put in a little extra help, and we call them the enhanced premium tax credit. And so that part is true. But what we're finding is that the cost of healthcare continues to increase. And we want to help people buy down the cost of that healthcare. So I have folks in my district, if the enhanced premium tax credit goes away, 25,000 people in my district, 25,000 people in my district alone, just in the Second Congressional District, Everett to Bellingham, Everett to the Canadian border, think about that. 25,000 of your neighbors will actually lose health insurance or pay perhaps double what they're paying now, which might make them choose not to have health care insurance at all. So it isn't a matter just of, oh, we did this for COVID, now COVID's gone, and therefore we don't need to do this. What we're finding is that healthcare costs a lot, and we need to do more to lower the cost of healthcare for folks, as opposed to making it tougher for them to do that. So that's kind of just in a nutshell what's going on. So I want to be sure you know that. I am in my office in DC, so I'm getting a lot of calls about aviation right now. There's a lot going on in aviation, and we can have a question about that too. So you may have heard a phone call come in. I'll get it later, but there's a lot going on here in Washington DC. So Joseph, I think it's where we kind of are. Your Republican friends, my Republican friends, are right that this was done. The enhanced premium tax credits were done in COVID, but what we're finding is healthcare is a problem for folks. Paying for healthcare is a problem for folks, and we need to keep these going because I have people I represent who will lose health insurance if these enhanced premium tax credits aren't re-upped. And I just can't be a responsible member of Congress and not fight for that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Congressman. Just another reminder for folks who are listening, if you have a question you would like to ask Congressman Larsen, you can press *3 and a member of our staff will take your question. And if you're watching online, you can leave your question in a comment and our staff members will pass it along. Mary in Bellingham is watching online and her question is, what is the state of air travel given the effects of the shutdown on air traffic controllers?
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate it. So there's a lot in the news today on aviation, and I think folks are probably tracking that pretty closely. So let me back up a little bit before I get to today and the news of today. I want to say how much I respect the women and men who serve in those air traffic control towers across the country, including in Seattle, in Payne Field, in Everett, and in Bellingham. Those are the three big towers that folks might be aware of in the district. A great respect for them. They show up every day to ensure that the plane that you are in takes off safely and lands safely. And there are a lot of important jobs in this country for a lot of reasons, and I just want to be sure you all understand that I think this is, that this is in the top of within the top of the list, what those women and men do in the control towers. So they aren't being paid right now. They're showing up every day for work. They are in the towers doing their job, but not getting paid. And it's a stressful job. As you can imagine, if you're one of 200 people in an airplane, you're probably not thinking about anything but going to visit your family, or if you're on a business trip or whatever. These women and men think about all 200 plus of you in that airplane, and the cabin crew and the flight deck crew all the time. So I think it's important to respect the work they're doing. We are trying, we're trying to ensure that they get paid. So let's fix the healthcare problem reopen the government, and ensure everybody gets paid, including air traffic controllers. I will say this, they work long hours as well, because we have a shortage of air traffic controllers. If you pump numbers through a model, what it spits out is that we need about 13,000 air traffic controllers, 13,500 air traffic controllers in the country. We have 10,800 air traffic controllers. So we're about 75% of our maximum number that we ought to have to fully staff towers across the country. That means these folks are working overtime, they're working weekends, they're working longer hours, and that's the environment that now they're working without pay. So you should have a lot of empathy for these folks and sympathy for their families as well. And that's where we are today. So the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, and the U.S. Department of Transportation today announced that starting Friday, the FAA is going to start throttling down the number of flights that exist across the country because of the shortage of controllers and because these folks are getting burned out. And rightfully so, some of them are calling in like, I need an extra day of vacation, I need to rest. That's totally fair. I'm very sympathetic to that, and I totally understand that. But what the FAA is saying is because of that, the FAA needs to ensure that fewer flights are coming in, or airlines need to ensure every seat is filled so that people are traveling. And that's going to mean some possible flight delays. In fact, before this call, literally, we started a little late because I was on a call with the Secretary of the Department of Transportation at the federal level about this very issue, and talking through with him what these changes will mean. So the FAA is going to be limiting the number of flights. They say they want to cut 10% of the flights at the top 40 airports in the country starting Friday. It's not a done deal. It still may happen, but there are a lot of issues that have to take place to ensure the safety of the flying public. And the number one goal here is the safety of the flying public. Meanwhile, we have to fix healthcare for everybody and open the government so our air traffic controllers can get paid and get their back pay, because they're working right now without pay. And I stand with them, and I am or my staff is on the phone every other day with the head of the union that represents the air traffic controllers, asking what can we do, what do we need to do, what's the next thing we need to do. And so I'm in touch with these folks. In fact, within the next week, I know I'm going to be meeting again with some air traffic controllers about what position they're in. So I'm doing all I can to do outreach. But a great question, very much appreciate it. There's some complexity to it, but honestly, it's really as simple as respect these men and women who go to work every day to ensure that you are flying safely, that you take off safely, that you land safely, you get to where you're going, whether it's business or loved ones or vacation. Meanwhile, I'm going to ensure that when we fix healthcare, we're going to be sure we open the government so these folks can get paid. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Congressman Larsen. Our next question is from Tammy on Orcas Island. Tammy, you are live with Congressman Larsen.
Hi. My question's also regarding the Affordable Care Act, but my concern is in addition to the rates and everything going up, what's going to happen to the people who are like me, who have autoimmune illnesses and stuff? Are we no longer going to be protected from being dropped by the insurance company?
Yeah, great question. So when it comes to the policies in the Affordable Care Act, those aren't under attack. What is under attack is funding to ensure the affordability of healthcare, which may impact you, honestly. But I hope it doesn't, and you need to let me know everybody who's listening, let us know your personal experiences so we can sort through them. But when we passed the Affordable Care Act, we did a lot of policy changes as well, including ensuring that to ensure that the pre-existing conditions were dealt with. So if you had a pre-existing condition, you were not penalized for in your healthcare plan for that pre-existing condition. And I think that's maybe where you come in to play your Tammy on Orcas. But I also say, like, there are a lot of folks who have since argued like we should repeal the whole thing and replace it with something that is not, that they don't define. The repeal and replace crowd, like the Freedom Caucus in Congress. Look, I just want to be sure you all understand that I was here, 9 years into my tenure when we were debating the Affordable Care Act, 10 years when we voted for it, and 15 years later, the Affordable Care Act, a lot of its provisions are still in place. It's still working in a lot of ways, but it is under attack. But so far, the policy of supporting, of not penalizing someone for a pre-existing condition has not been changed, and I'm going to fight to continue that continues to be the case. And I think for folks, and I have friends who have autoimmune disease. I understand where you're coming from. Like, we don't need to go back to the days though when being pregnant was a pre-existing condition, which it was before we passed the Affordable Care Act. And that is wrong that it was, and it is right that we fixed it, as well as other pre-existing conditions. People need to be able to have access to health care, and I'll continue to fight for that.
Thank you, Congressman Larsen. Our next question comes from Barb, who is watching online. Barb wants to know, are we in Washington State taking action to maintain positive relations with our neighbors in Canada?
Hey, great question as well. A lot of great questions tonight. In fact, I have 6 great questions listed here tonight, and so far, the ones I've answered. And the short answer is yes. I was in Vancouver earlier this year with the Consul General of the United States Embassy, who's there in Vancouver, and we did a variety of meetings, including talking to some companies that do cross-border work, including I talked to the BC Premier. I had about a 15-minute meeting with the Premier of BC, just to emphasize as well the importance of that U.S.-Canada relationship and the importance of the Washington State British Columbia relationship. This year alone, I've talked twice to a group that is organized out of both the San Juan Islands on our side of the border and the Gulf Islands on the Canadian side of the border, who are focused on ensuring that the islands, across Harrow Strait, the folks in the islands across Harrow Strait are continuing dialogue as well. I believe, I could be wrong here, but I think recently Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia signed a general, memorandum of agreement or understanding that they're going to, maintain good relations and continue to work together. And, we always need to look for those opportunities to work with our Canadian partners. And so next year is the World Cup. The U.S. is in the World Cup. It's the big soccer tournament. I'm a big fan of soccer. I was a ball boy when I was a Sounder. I'm sorry, I was a ball boy as a kid. A ball boy for the Sounders when I was a kid. And so I love soccer. Well, the World Cup is going to come to Seattle and to Vancouver. And this is a major soccer tournament, worldwide soccer tournament. And so we have an opportunity now to cooperate and work with our friends in British Columbia to ensure all those people coming to the U.S. and to Canada can get back and forth across the border to enjoy soccer. And you have to take these opportunities, any chance you can get, to ensure the long-term good relations. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court heard a case today that challenged the Trump administration's efforts to use a law on International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the IEEPA, to use that law to put tariffs on other countries for national security issues. Now, I signed what's called an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, to the Supreme Court to say what the administration is doing is wrong. They're using a law that was not designed to be used in the way the administration is using it. And these tariffs are also being used against Canada and against trade with Canada. So I am a strong supporter of U.S.-Canada relations. You know, I grew up in Arlington, Washington in the days before internet. Trying to explain this to my sons is pretty incredible. Like we had over-the-air broadcast. We didn't have internet. So I listened to Canadian radio because reception was better. We watched Canadian television because the reception was better, and we didn't have the internet. And so I still listen to Canadian radio along with my classic rock station KISM in Bellingham that I listen to as well. But it isn't just a matter of is it the right thing to do to have new relations? It is the right thing. But like I grew up in the environment where the relationship that the Washington State had with British Columbia was important. And that was very impactful to me. And I'm continuing to fight for the importance of that relationship, and will continue to do so. We may have a long way to go on this one, but I think it's important that we continue to fight for good relations with our Canadian partners. And I will also just put a plug in here. Tariffs increase prices for you. And so we feel the tariff war more than a lot of other states do. We are feeling the increased prices of Trump fighting this tariff war and making us pay the cost for it. And it's wrong that he does that, and we need to be against that. Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you, Congressman. As a reminder, this is an interactive forum. Today we have one survey question for the folks who have called in, and that is, are you expecting your healthcare costs to go up next year? If you are expecting your healthcare costs to go up next year, please press 1. If you are not expecting your healthcare costs to go up next year, please press 2. If you're not sure if your healthcare costs are going up next year, please press 3. Thank you for responding. And again, you can press star 3 on your keypad at any time to get in line to ask a question. A member of our staff will collect your question, and Representative Larsen will answer as many as he can during this town hall. Again, that's star 3 on your keypad, or you can leave a question in the comments of the Instagram or Facebook live stream. And for those of you who would like to join the Representative e-newsletter and are participating on the phone, you can press star 6 on your telephone keypad, and a member of our team will add you to our e-newsletter list. I also want to encourage everyone to follow Representative Larsen on Facebook with the username Representative Rick Larsen, and on Instagram with the username @RepRickLarsen to stay up to date on his work for Northwest Washington State. Our next question comes from Rob, who is watching online, and his question is, I thought multiple judges had ordered Trump to use contingency funds allocated for SNAP benefits to be paid out. Why hasn't he done that yet?
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that question. It's an important one. So let me ask the question and give you some perspective on what I saw this last weekend. 2 judges ordered the administration to spend a $5.5 billion contingency fund that was actually for the payment of SNAP benefits. These are called Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, or SNAP. These are the old, what we call food stamps. But basically these days, the money is just downloaded onto a debit, what is the equivalent of a debit card for folks who have an eligible debit card who are on SNAP. So that's how that's done. So on November 1, the SNAP benefits ran out. But there is this $5.5 billion with a B contingency fund for SNAP specifically, and the administration wasn't going to use it. In fact, they said, well, we aren't allowed to use that. Now think about this. The administration has done some interesting things. They have taken money within the defense budget away from research development issues that are important, in defense and use that money to pay women and men who are wearing the uniform of the United States in our military. I want those folks to get paid. They have taken money from an account for the Homeland Security to pay for the uniformed women and men who serve in the Coast Guard, and I want them to get paid. That's good, but this is money, this $5.5 billion is money specifically for food stamps. It's not for anything else, unlike the other two cases I mentioned. And yet, they refuse to spend this money. And so, a lawsuit was filed, including from Washington State, to say spend this money on the things it's supposed to be spent on. And two judges, federal judges, said you need to do this. So, finally earlier this week, the administration said, all right, we'll do it. Like, you're twisting our arm. We will spend money on the thing that the law says we're supposed to spend money on, unlike other things. And that's where we are today. But they also said it's $5.5 billion. We want this to stretch out the entire month. So we're only going to be able to pay half of the food stamp benefit to folks. It is entirely possible, and there's a legal authority for the administration to take that $5.5 billion and take $3.5 billion. Otherwise, it's in the U.S. Department of Agriculture so that they can pay an entire month. So one full month, 360 million people in the country, about 10% of them, 12% are on food stamps, and you could, with $9 billion, you could pay them all, give them their benefit for the entire month. But the administration is refusing to do that. But they are going to get this $5.5 billion out. So that's good news. But we had to sue them we had to sue the administration in order for them to spend the money that they legally were required to spend anyway. And that's who these guys are. Now, let me tell you about this weekend back home. Again, I'm in DC now. I was back home this weekend. I was in Linwood to help the Linwood Food Bank and their mobile truck distribute food to people. I was in LaConner at the LaConner Food Bank on Friday, in Stanwood at the Stanwood Food Bank. I was in Oak Harbor at Help House Food Bank as well, and then down in Langley at the Good Cheer Food Bank. Visiting these food banks, and I heard a couple things. One is the word is out that folks are going to lose access to food stamp benefits or SNAP benefits. And so gracious people are sending money to these food banks. They're bringing extra food to these food banks so that folks who are losing the food stamp benefit now maybe can have an opportunity to get a little extra food. Because honestly, the food stamps don't pay for all the food people need. So food banks do fill an important role. That's one thing, and it's a great story because it's about people stepping up. The other part about this, though, is that the other story is that it is not sustainable. I think the administration believes that people will be able to do, donors and things will be able to do donations at this level forever. And that's just, it's not the case. It's not, history shows it's not the case. I think you have communities stepping in to fill a gap right now. And that's what I heard from our food banks. We need to ensure that the SNAP benefit program is funded. There may be folks who believe that that is abused, but keep in mind that today they actually just download the money onto what is a SNAP benefit debit card, and that debit card, therefore, it's all electronic. They only can use a debit card, the food stamp money that taxpayers provide to these folks for the things that they're eligible to buy. They can't buy things on that benefit card that they're eligible to buy. So, I think it's a good investment. I also think that this administration is using excuses to try not to spend that money, but we won that fight. But when we reopen the government, we need to ensure that we continue this SNAP benefit program and continue to help fund food banks efforts. They use federal. They get food from what's called the Emergency Food Assistance Program. Those products go into the bags of folks who go to food banks. They need help too. Our food bank system, our SNAP benefit system, is about feeding hungry families and hungry kids, and it works pretty well. It gives people a floor on which they can stand so that they can better themselves in their lives and eventually move to a place in their own lives where they don't need that program. But if you don't fund it, I assure you they will always need that program. And so that's why it's important to, give a hand, like they say, not a handout, but a hand up to a lot of folks. Thanks.
Thank you, Congressman. Our next question is from Kirsten in Everett. Kirsten in Everett, you are live with Congressman Larsen.
Good evening, Congressman.
Good evening.
My question I'm sorry, I'm a little under the weather, but my question to you is, I'm a Native American, and I moved up here from Arizona. My question is the racial profiling right now of brown and black people. How is Washington State ensuring, or do they have any contingency plans to set up to help citizens being stopped by ICE?
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the contribution that there are 8 federally recognized tribes in my district, and I respect all of them. I have government-to-government relationships with all of them, and I turn to them individually when I have questions about issues of Native Americans, and never ask them to say speak for all Native Americans, but only speak for the people that you represent, because I want to be respectful, and I also want to be sure I'm reaching out, and so really great contributors to our culture, and I've learned a lot from my friends in the various tribal nations that I get an opportunity to represent. And as a result, I know that it's a concern of theirs and a concern of many folks about what ICE is doing. Now, I can't speak for the state of Washington government and what they're doing. I don't know the answer to that. As your federal representative, I'm focused a lot more on what's going on, what I can do at the federal level when it comes to ICE. And so I will note that we stand ready in my office to help people individually. So, for instance, a young man named Lalo ICE abducted him. He was in the Northwest Detention Center for a long time. I was able to visit him. And unfortunately, he chose to deport himself. But I was able to sit down with him there in the Tacoma Detention Center, meet with him personally and in private, speak with him, and I was able to get him the opportunity to meet with his family in person and not through a plexiglass window before he was able to leave. And but it was a very difficult time for our entire community in the Northwest. I worked with Maxine Dexter from Portland to help locate a woman named Jackie Merlos and her 4 children who were citizens. They were being held in Ferndale without access to legal counsel. And Maxine Dexter, Representative Dexter, and I called on the Homeland Security Department to grant Jackie access to counsel. She has since been released from immigration custody and reunited with her children as her case proceeds to the court. So I say this because if you call our office on an individual basis, we can help you possibly help you with individual cases. Now, let's look back, let's go 30,000 feet. the president said he would go after the worst of the worst with his immigration policy. Well, in reality, he's gone after hardworking members of our communities. They are paying taxes, they are raising families, they're participating in their communities, they are churchgoers, and the president is going after them. If he was going after the worst of the worst, I think all of us would be great. Get those folks out of our communities, make sure that appropriate justice is done using our laws in the United States. But he's not doing that. He is not doing that. He is going after folks who are not the worst of the worst. They're contributors to our community, and frankly, there's a lot of questions about whether or not they're following the law when they do that. I don't want to be down on any one member, one employee of the Immigrations Customs Enforcement or ICE. I do criticize the policies that they are doing, that they're undertaking. And I think that we need to be really clear that we're going to stand up for the rule of law in this country. We're going to stand up for civil rights in this country. We are going to ensure that anybody who's in the United States, and this applies to folks who are here legally, and I know this sticks in the cross on folks, but the Constitution clearly applies to folks who are here not legally in the United States. They have rights too. And I think the administration is attempting to subvert the rule of law when it comes to folks who are here legally. They're also changing the definition of folks who have been here legally to say they're here illegally. So they're kind of changing the rules on people, which I think is just frankly wrong. I think that's not the American way as well. And so I've been vocal. I do think that it's important for folks who are concerned to contact your local community groups who, especially for who are fighting for legal rights of citizens and residents of the United States in our neighborhoods, to ensure that you know what your rights are. I think, I'll double check with my staff, but I believe we have the documents that we borrowed from other folks that just say, here are your rights. You should know your rights. If you're stopped by anybody, you do have rights. You do not have to. They have to comply with your rights, is the way that I would put it. And but you need to know what your rights are as well. And we have a fact sheet for folks on that. Meanwhile, I've been vocal against this administration's efforts to take away people who are contributing to our communities, who are paying taxes, who are active in our local communities, and I'll continue to do that. But look, if anyone on this call has any one problem on immigration, please give my office a call. We can find a way either to step in directly or get you directed to someone who can help you better.
From Bill, who is watching online. Bill asks, what can we do about Trump shutting down environmental protections?
Bill, thanks so much for the question about environmental protections. This administration, I hope you're all sitting down because I'm going to say something very shocking. They don't seem to like the environment. They don't seem to they seem to love climate change as well. And I think we need to continue to fight to preserve Washington State's environment. We need to protect our environment. Our environment in Washington State is part of our economy. People move to Washington State because we have a great environment. I'm telling people all the time, my friends in DC, colleagues in DC who are from other parts of the country, I said, we don't get the green without the gray. It's beautiful because it rains. And so we have a great environment because we have clean water, we fight for clean water, we have clean air, we fight for clean air, and that makes the quality of life in the Pacific Northwest worth living in. And this administration is undermining all of that. They're undermining the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. But I do think that we have to identify that as a fight we need to fight, and rebuild the EPA when we get the majority back in the House of Representatives, and when the president and we get a change in the presidency. Our public lands have been under threat, but we fought that and beat the administration in trying to sell off public lands, including parts of the U.S. Forest Service, Mount Baker-Snohomish National Forest, potentially lands next to the North Cascades National Park. We have fought for that, and it's important for our economy as well. Outdoor recreation alone accounts for over 260,000 jobs in our state and supports $26.5 billion in annual spending. So, I mean, I oppose any effort to sell off public land. We have the roadless rule, the Forest Service's 2001 roadless rule. I came in Congress in 2001. This thing is as old as I am. And the roadless rule prohibits road construction, road reconstruction, and timber harvest on 58.5 million acres of national forest land. And the Trump administration has proposed repealing that rule, which would open up over 330,000 acres of protected land in the Mount Baker-Snohomish National Forest for road building and logging. And that's according to the Everett Herald. So I have sponsored legislation to codify the original roadless rule, to put it into law to protect this, and join my colleagues in signing letters to support the rule and oppose this very short 3-week public comment period the administration had. So I'm working on clean water in the Puget Sound. I'm a co-sponsor with Patty Murray of the Northwest Straits Reauthorization Bill. I'm a co-chair of the Estuaries Caucus to protect the Puget Sound and the tidelands around the Puget Sound. I'm fighting back against the horrible undermining of the Clean Water Act as well. But I will tell you, it is a fight. It's a fight to protect our quality of life when you're talking about this administration. They're not interested in the environment. I jokingly said they're interested in climate change. I'm against climate change. They're for climate change. And we need to be sure that we're fighting for our environment as well, because our environment is directly tied to our quality of life and our economy in the Northwest.
Thank you, Congressman Larsen. Our next call is from Megan in Everett. Megan in Everett, you are live with Representative Larsen.
Thank you. Hello. So I'm going to go back to the food stamp discussion.
Sure. Yeah.
Are there places because I used to volunteer at food stamp or at food banks. Are there food banks in this area that you know that desperately need volunteers?
I can't. Thank you very much. Legally, I can't suggest any one food bank. I can tell you that where I visited recently, Stanwood Food Bank, they're very busy. The LaConner Food Bank is busy very busy on Friday because they do distributions on Monday. Linwood Food Bank seems to be always busy. It's a larger one. I went to Whidbey Help House, and that's in Oak Harbor, and you can check any of these websites for their schedule, and then Good Cheer Food Bank on South Whidbey Island in Langley. Now I will say, the Volunteers of America of Western Washington, they both operate a food bank and they operate a distribution center, which means they get food and they bring it to more local food banks. And so VOA, or Volunteers of America of Western Washington, you can call any of these folks to find out what their times are and what it takes to volunteer for any of them. I do think it's they're any and all of them are looking for volunteers to ensure that they can handle this very temporary and large surge of food that's coming in, so they can sort it, repack it, and get it out the door. So I would just say that I can't suggest, they're all nonprofits, and I can't say do help one or the other, but generally I think that any of them would take a volunteer to help cut down the time it takes to get food on the shelf, so folks can come in and get their food to keep their family fed.
Thank you, Congressman. Our next question is from Scott, who's watching online. Scott says, my wife and I own a small business in Washington. Our health insurance on the Washington Health Finder is set to increase $2,700 a month. If that holds, we will have to close our business that we started over 30 years ago. What can you do to help people like us?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. And this is sort of the question of the day, and why the premium tax credit extension is so critical, so important for folks like Scott and other small business owners throughout my district. One of the features of the Affordable Care Act was the effort to ensure that small businesses could, use tax credits to buy down the cost of their healthcare plan. And it worked for a lot of businesses. It didn't work for everybody. It worked for a lot of them. And I think with the enhanced premium tax credit, it's important that we extend it, because the cost of healthcare without it for small businesses is going to increase. Scott mentioned his number. I've heard from other folks throughout the district that they're seeing higher increases as a result. And so I think, passing the enhanced premium tax credit as a precursor to ending the government is very important, so that small businesses can know in our state that they're getting help to buy down the cost of their health care. It isn't that their health care costs won't increase at all, but it will increase a lot less because of the enhanced premium tax credit, and we're trying to get that done. And I can just tell Scott and others that I am focused on your costs, to try to lower your cost of healthcare, to try to lower your cost of energy, try to lower the cost of groceries that you buy. And I think one reason why the election night yesterday went the way it did is because the Trump administration isn't focused on lowering healthcare costs or grocery costs or energy costs. And I am focused on that. I want to be really, really clear to everybody who's listening. That's my focus, and I'll just continue to work really hard for y'all to make that happen. I think that was the last question. We're getting kind of laid out here in nation's capital in DC, but I will be home this weekend and getting around the district all weekend. I will also be rooting for the Huskies and the Cougars and the Seattle Sounders and the Seattle Reign and the Seattle Seahawks. And one day I hope to be rooting for the Seattle Supersonics. So thank you all very much for the time tonight. Appreciate it. Pam?
Thank you, Congressman. And thank you all again for taking the time to join Representative Larsen. If we did not get to your question this evening, you can leave a voicemail with his office after the event, or go to larsen.house.gov/contact to get in touch with the office. A recording of this town hall will be available on